Welcome to Men, Sex, and Tantra.
Discover what your parents, porn, and religion never taught you about being a man and having extraordinary sex. Get ready to have your mind blown and your world rocked. All right, everybody, we're back, and it's Men, Sex, and Tantra, and money. Still here. Money, right? Still here with that, talking about money. And what do you have for us today? Where are we going to? Oh, yeah, this is kind of juicy. This is like getting financially naked. What the heck does that mean?
Man, it means like taking off your clothes and doing your budget. And looking at the looks that you make.
I bet you guys didn't see that coming. God, take off your clothes and do your budget. Let's do it.
Hey, honey, I'm naked. Come on over. Let's look at the spreadsheets.
That might make talking about money better.
You know,
like that could make budgeting a lot better. I think you're onto something here.
You know, I don't think I've ever. I mean, this is just being playful, but we might be onto something here. This might be revolutionary.
I think you might try it out. Naked budgeting. Dude, that's the thing.
I'm gonna go home and tell my wife, and
I know.
I'll report back and see how it goes.
Yeah, do it. I think that's a great thing. Okay.
But let's run down this rabbit hole for just a minute.
Sure.
Because what happens when we get undressed and we're sitting with our partner? Like, how many people can do that, do you think? Like, in a non-sexual way, could you just sit next to your partner and be naked?
Just sit in. A lot of people. I know a lot of women. I know that that's a challenge for a huge amount of women to be naked in the light.
Right.
And just hanging out. Now, clearly not for nudists. They're all about that. But
they've crossed that psychological bridge where they're comfortable being. But
just sitting naked at the dining room table or the couch or whatever is not a lot of people don't do that.
Yeah, I don't know too many people that just lounge around the house naked.
Right.
So, okay, so maybe that would be a hard ask to get people to sit around naked looking at their net worth or their budget. You know, your listeners have, email Tanya and let her know how it goes. She can
let me know if you just, or even, we could start with ourselves. So we could actually get naked and sit in front of our budget to start, or our bank account.
You know, I like that. Like, if I just go home and I take off all my clothes and I open up, what is it, QuickBooks, and see what happens. Yeah,
absolutely. So that might be interesting. Facing the money while you're naked might give you an entirely different energetic perspective. If you feel vulnerable with both, that would set you up for a high vulnerability emotional situation right there.
Right. I might need my comfy blanket and crawl afterwards and suck my thumb for a few minutes, but if that's what I need, then that's what I need. It'll be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right.
So I think, typically when I'm thinking about getting financially naked, I'm really talking about showing the numbers and looking at your financial numbers together. And I'm going to keep it really simple. Let's our spending numbers as a couple. Both people can fully see everything that's being spent. And both people can see everything on the balance sheet or the net worth statement. And those are two of the most powerful financial statements in an intimate relationship, because those show you where you're at and what you're able to do or not able to do from a functional finance standpoint.
Let me ask you a primer question first, okay? Because this is a question that people ask a lot. And it's like the old paradigm of, the man works and makes the money and the woman has nothing to do with the finances. It's still around, but it's kind of but should couples, is it automatic that everything should be a we, that you just throw all your money in one bank account and somebody else runs it, or what? Because I think I've done it. I have to say, a lot of people have heard, I've been married a ton. I get married every decade just to see if I like it or not. I typically don't. So anyway, so I've had a bunch of live-ins since then. I've had a lot of relationships. And so I've done it so many different ways. I've done we're all in to the bank account together. We pay our bills based on a percentage, right? We split it on a percentage. I've been everybody has their own money. And, we pay into a household money. I've had I'm the only one with money. I'm supporting my broke boyfriend experience. I had a 6-month stint where I was supported. It was the most horrible experience of my life. I just want to say that right now. I'm used to being the one making the money. That was an eye opener.
Wow. Yeah.
That was
Big time.
horrifying. That was horrifying. Just want to say.
Yeah.
So is there a best way? I mean, like, because
Well,
you see the problems. So like, if you extrapolate from that problem, what can you say about how people should start that even?
well, Diane, I would love it if there was one right way to do money with couples. I would
Yeah.
absolutely love that. But I don't think there is.
Where do they get into the most trouble? Is because they're not transparent. No matter how they're doing it, they're not transparent.
They're not transparent, right? And I think so. Transparency is so important, but I think at that deeper level, they're not understanding themselves and their partner and what's driving them to organize the money the way that they are.
Right. Because they didn't
Right.
talk about it before they got married much.
Right. Right. So are they operating off of old rules, like the conventional, like, well, dad does this, mom does that, so this is how it is. And look, the reality is every family has a way that they organize around money. The way you grew up and the way you saw your mom and dad organize around money, the way any of the guys that you live with, it happens in every family, in every constellation, you navigate money.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I went to the Philippines and did microfinance work years ago. And microfinance work is all about empowering women with money and lending.
Yeah.
And the researchers said, hey, the women are more responsible with money. Let's set up lending groups for them. They'll talk with each other. They'll support each other. They'll grow their entrepreneurial enterprises. And I was like, hey, whiz bang idea. This is fantastic. But I always had this lurking question like, what does that do to the guys? What does that say to the guys in the relationship? Right. So what's the meaning that gets driven? That's where there's some cultural context. And why I'm always very cautious to say, this is definitely the way to do it. No, I do generally think that when couples have high levels of financial trust and low levels of unresolved financial trauma, that they can manage shared finances and transparency. But there are, you got the spenders and the savers, which is, the most common simple way to boil things down. And this gets a little more into the roles and responsibilities, but like who's also more task oriented should probably be in charge of managing and paying all the bills. Because like
clients are. So basically I remember working with a guy who was talking about how he handled all the finances and all the rest of that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But he was always getting crap from his wife about it. Right. And their sex life was not great.
Right.
And there's a correlation here. And so
big time.
But he felt like, I'm like, well, it's really, and he goes, I said, is she good with organization and stuff? And he goes, yeah, she's way better than I am. I'm like, hand it over to her. And he's like, no, I need her to respect me. And I'm like, well, she's not respecting you now, dude. Like you're screwing it up. Like, this is not the way to get respect. You're screwing it up. And she's telling you that she can fix it. And everybody, but it was like so incredibly hard for him to, because, he had the basic money story of the man provides, the man takes care of stuff, he takes care of the woman, blah, 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 blah.
Right.
But she was better at it. And so as soon as he let go and she handled it, oh my God.
It opened up so much. Absolutely. And that's, this is the challenging our beliefs. And we talked in that last episode about your money story and going back in your family history. Here's the next money exercise. This is a great free association exercise. Men are with money, and just start filling in the blanks. Just let your brain dump out as many things that can come up for you about men are with money.
Insecure.
First thing, right? Boom.
Yeah, because that's been real problems with my relationships as the person who makes most of the money most of the time.
And then we play the other side. Women are with money, and then start just filling in the blanks and see and let it start dumping out and seeing what's inside of me. What do I not even know that's inside of me about it? And you're going to start finding conflicts, internal conflicts about what men and women can and shouldn't do. And that's where you're going to find the misalignments.
Yeah, and that's interesting because, my money story is my dad was an extremely powerful man who made money, right? My mother was an extremely powerful woman who seemed his equal. So there was no discrepancy there. My relationships, I put money as a priority in my life. Like, I got asked by a friend once, Tanya, how much do you think the average person makes? This was 1982, 83. And my friend says to me, how much do you think the average person makes? And I said, oh, about 250,000 a year. And she looks at me and she goes, you spend more in a month than most people make in a year.
Yeah.
Dude, what? I had zero awareness of any of that, but seeing both of my parents as powerful people, it made me feel that way. And then I was totally ignorant when I got into my first relationship where I made more money.
That's right.
And I'm that generous person. I'm like, you can't come to Hawaii. I want to go to Hawaii. You can't afford it. Let's go. I pay for it. No problem.
Yeah, right.
But that was a problem. That was a challenge. So if I go do that exercise, men with money are post relationships and after, totally different.
Well, and I would be curious, Tanya, to say, were there times when you saw insecurity with your father and money, right? You had the story that dad was powerful with money.
Just one time when he decided to run a drill, and the drill was, oh, my company is going to lay me off. And I was 17, I was 16, I had graduated from high school. And he goes, oh, my company's going to lay me off. We all have to tighten down the belt. And he goes, and you need to go to work and I want your paycheck. And I'm like thinking, this sounds the most stupid thing I've ever heard, but okay, fine. So I did that. That would have been the closest. I mean, they bitched about me and how much I cost, but I felt like that was just bitching, because I knew that I wasn't costing them, running them out of home and whatever else. Like, that wouldn't happen.
So what would happen if we looked at that bitching through the lens of insecurity, though?
Right. Yeah. And he was never insecure about money. And as far as putting it to me, he grew up with nothing. Yeah. But he also wasn't a chase everything. He'd spend money. So he had a nice balance. But if we look at this, like I said, to your point of what's our story now between the genders. Yeah.
Because we have gender associations about money and what men are capable of and not capable. And it varies, right? I had a friend of mine share with me, years ago, female, and she said, yeah, in my house, the women all managed the money and ran the money and made the most money. And like, that was leading to conflict with her then husband. Yeah. Because like, that was not the story in his head.
His house, right, exactly.
And so the real takeaway, right, is we all have a story in our head about money and how it should work and who should be doing what. Right. And the question is, it's like you take the script for one movie, let's call it a comedy, and you take the script for another movie, a horror. I have the horror script, you have the comedy script, we come together, and we're like, we're going to make one hell of a movie. But then it's like, I'm trying to make things laugh, and you're trying to scare the shit out of things. And it's like, what are we supposed to do here?
What the heck is happening, right?
So we carry the stories and these scripts in our head about how things work. And part of really digging deep and working with financial transparency and financial security is getting really comfortable with your money story and opening it up so that you can not feel like you have to hide what's really going on. But we learn and get socialized to hide parts of, hide our money thoughts, hide money feelings, and hide money behaviors, because for a number of reasons, but primarily it's to protect other people's feelings.
Well, and our self-esteem.
Our self-esteem. Yeah.
If your worth is about being a provider.
Yeah.
And that gets dinged, right? How many movies have we seen where the man gets laid off or something happens in his job and he doesn't come home and tell anybody? Yeah. Right. He's just out trying to fix it, make it work without bearing all that burden on himself, without telling anybody. But the wife's all like, I don't understand what's wrong. He's distant. You better believe sex life is non-existent at that point.
Oh yeah.
Take your sex life down really fast. And all of this keeps coming back to sex, because that transparency and money that you have with money, or the ability to be vulnerable, is really what we're talking about.
Right. That's right. The ability to be vulnerable around money. And that is something that's easy to hear and nod your head and be like, yeah, that makes sense. But then the act of actually doing it is what's so challenging. And that's why working with someone like yourself or myself that can coach you and be with you as you cross these new thresholds of vulnerability
Yeah.
because
And
you need that experience of actually displaying it. And this is the thing is like, we get vulnerability shamed in our intimate relationships around money. So, and I'm going to speak on behalf of guys right now.
Yeah.
If guys are vulnerable about their financial fears and anxieties, their wives will be very quick to rebuff them or minimize them.
Yeah. Same with sex, by the way.
Right. And so, like, I was just talking with someone else earlier today, and he was bringing his wife to this female financial coach to see if she would help get his wife to stop spending so much money. And so I understand there's some framing issues here, like,
Yeah.
but every time he would try his approach, and so we were talking about this and another time, his approach would shut her down from engaging in building that financial intimacy and working together. But she would also minimize his fears and anxieties.
Yeah.
She said, oh, it's not that big a deal. Well, you make plenty of money, or you can just go make more money. And this is something I hear all the time, especially in the entrepreneurial business world, is you're upwardly mobile, you keep getting pay raises, so why would they stop? You're aspirational anyways. And so it's just this treadmill of
right. And you know, these same and in this same vein, if I take we could have just been having a sex conversation right there too, because basically a man would talk about his sexual issues, a woman's like, oh, it's no big deal or whatever, or you know, the same
totally minimizing
the same type of conversations right there. His approach is wrong, you know, on talking about it. But you know, that brings up the like why we like, if I always like to go to that core, right? And it's like why we picked our partners, because sometimes I see men pick the trophy partner that has the expectation of the fact that that's why they're getting together. Like they have, maybe it's an unspoken agreement.
Right. Oh yeah.
But there's the agreement. And then later on, that unspoken agreement, and so this is the topic, unspoken agreement, it becomes a problem because now he wants to actually be loved and not seen as a cash mule.
Right. Oh my God.
And that's not what they agreed to in the beginning. So like, you know, holy crap, right? It's like, right. So at the very beginning, when you're dating, you should be having, obviously, conversations about sexual compatibility as well as monetarily compatibility, right? Or
absolutely. If you're taking your clothes off to have sex, then you need to be taking your clothes off to talk about money.
Right.
I mean, again, not maybe literally, but symbolically, like if you're not comfortable talking about your financial life together and what that means. I got a recent email from someone that said, hey, we got married years ago and we did the pre-marriage thing and it said we were compatible on this and that, but not money. Well, it's years later and we're still not compatible on money. And I think about but the challenge is it's easy to want to like be upset with a couple for like, well, why didn't you figure it out? Well, the reality is there's no support for couples to figure out how to increase their compatibility.
Right. Well, and can it be increased? I mean, that's so sexual compatibility, different than pheromones. Sexual chemistry cannot be changed. That is a set by biology thing. Sexual compatibility can be navigated.
Okay.
And so we can correlate those two: money, financial compatibility, like how much are we going to save? How are we going to do this? What type of decisions are we going to? That's all a learned skill. And that can be helped.
Yes. Yeah. So I think kind of made the correlation, right, is base financial preferences and orientations will probably not be changed because they're set. Like they're so experience dependent. But the way we interact and with ourselves and our partner around those orientations around money can change a lot and take the shame out of it, take the resentment and the anger and understand and see the value of the contribution. And so, you know, like if you want nice things in your, I mean, I had this couple I worked with for a while where she wanted to have nice things in her home. Yeah. She wanted to decorate it nicely. And he was just fit to be tight about it because he didn't want to spend money on that because it's not valuable. It's more valuable to spend money on trips and experiences.
He was experience oriented. She was material oriented.
Right. And so it was like major loggerheads. And what we work towards in time is helping them see beneath that is the experience of spending time as a family. I'm not asking her to give that up.
Right.
And I'm not asking you to give that up. And you need to stop asking each other to both give that up, because it ain't going to happen. But if you're going to find a shared core value that comes out of both of those things, then you can be on, it's going to be a lot easier to get on board with it. You may never fall in love with the fact that your wife wants designer couches, and your wife that wants designer couches has a responsibility for buying designer couches in appropriate proportion to the household income. But you also have a responsibility, if you're an experienced person, to spend money in appropriate proportion to household. You don't get to over lever. And that's where, again, that those technicalities is, we're going to give more priority to what we value. And if we add a moral lens to it too, watch out.
Yeah. That, I remember my one of my exes went on a gambling spree, and apparently, heads up, at the ATM machine in the gambling room, it doesn't stop you once you've gone negative. You can continue to take out cash till the cows come home. Well, I was at a workshop and I came back. I thought he'd been rolled in a parking lot, killed, and his credit cards or our cards stolen, because I'm all of a sudden getting all these alerts and watching my balance go to negative 4,000, or it's like my account, his account, and then my account. So I assumed, okay. As it turns out, no, he went on a gambling spree. And I decided to take the judgment, the fact that it was gambling, out. I had the discussion. I was kind of like, so dude, what happened? And pretend like he had gone to a spa day, or he bought a bunch of new clothes, or he bought new technology, or whatever. That really did change how I had that conversation, by the way.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, I was kind of like, all right, would I feel the same if he'd, you know, like I said, just bought a bunch of new clothes or bought a bunch of stuff for the house or whatever, but I digress. So but it's still about that vulnerable ability to have that conversation. And I think just like if I realize I say sex words and talk about sex really easily. And I was just tuning in to the same, like, where am I that transparent financially? I was taking a moment to kind of check in, like, you know, I've talked about finances on radio shows, and, you know, because I've made a lot of money and I've lost a lot of money. 5 years ago, same partner lost everything with that. And so I feel like I'm pretty open about that. But I would also say that if I was going to feel shamed or worth, so I wrote down the word worth over here.
Oh, big time. Yeah.
Because I think that's a key word in this conversation around sex and money, right?
Absolutely.
So if I had any place that I would not be completely transparent, it would be the times when I've taken either think I did something really stupid financially, right? Or taken a hit financially that I could have avoided, or things like that. That does make me, I can feel that in my body. I can be like, oh,
yeah, I can see the shoulders.
That makes me feel stupid. And so that worth, right? So there's that word, would be stupid. I've made lots of stupid decisions when it comes to relationships. I don't feel bad about that. But money, definitely, that one does. If I have a regret or a stupid feeling or a worth issue, it's going to show up around that.
That's so powerful. And I'm so appreciative of you taking that moment to check in with yourself. And that I'm cherry picking the stupid piece, because that's one I hear a lot, and it needs to be opened up and made safe to talk about, is that self-judgment around a stupid money decision will send people into shame very, very quick. Yeah.
And shame is a cycle of, I'm not worthy as a person, not my behavior is bad, but I as a human am not worthy.
And we lose relational connection. And then that's where we get into financial distancing and drawing apart.
The secretiveness.
Financial infidelity starts to show up, right? And so we have to be very aware and thoughtful about, are we calling ourselves stupid financially, or are we allowing other people to, or are we doing that to our partner overtly, using the word, or covertly? And that's like tying back to my own story without even realizing it sometimes, is I have a power differential because of my education in finance, that I can use a lot of terms and talk about money in very technical ways. And my wife is incredibly smart, but she's not educated in personal finance to the level that I am.
Right. Yeah.
And so if I don't join her at her level, and this is not in a belittling way, this is in a respectful way.
Right.
I may be triggering things inside of her without even realizing it, and with her, because
We're using it in a way to
overpower her.
Yeah, that's right, to keep the power going on, right?
Consciously or unconsciously. And if she hits that I feel stupid button, if I hit it for her, intentionally or unintentionally, like it's going to shut that conversation down.
There
So
goes the sex life.
so
There go the blowjobs.
there they go out the window.
Oops, yeah, it's not the way to receive one.
So I want to join with you in that transparency, because something got shown to me today, up like that stupid button for you. You realize, like, man, if there's something that's going to get me, it's going to be like I did something stupid with money.
Yeah.
I had this button, like, damn it if I didn't know it wasn't there, but I had someone in passing jokingly say, "Oh, you're here now? Where you been all day? You must be taking it easy, lazy. You must be lazy."
Mm.
Oh, that fucking sent me into rage faster than anything. And if you're in rage, you're in shame.
Yeah.
Right? Those things are deeply related, and people miss that.
Yeah.
But rage is a response to shame. And that implication that I'm lazy,
Deep seated, right?
and this is that challenges with more self-awareness. I can see that I still modulate way down. I just collapse all that anger, rage, energy, but that's what sends me into depression too. So I've got to find a way to acknowledge the rage and then get it expressed productively and not destructively.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I can come out of the shame. So yeah, I mean, lazy is a big trip word for a lot of people around money.
Yeah. Lazy. Yes.
Stupid.
Bad decisions. You're irresponsible, by the way.
Irresponsible.
I was
irresponsible.
told, so there's my tag, my family, because here's the story too. You guys are gonna laugh. So I got a job as a lifeguard, and right out of school, and I told you the backstory, seeing everybody spending money, buy 6, 7, 8 of thing, whatever. So like I got a job as a lifeguard, and I went with my own money, bought 6 bathing suits, because I was a swim coach, a swimmer, and a lifeguard. I'm going to be in the pool all the time.
Right.
So I went and bought 6 bathing suits. All right. So I didn't think anything of that. Like, whatever. Right. That story was told at every family gathering for decades about my irresponsibility with money. Now, I didn't, at that time, it used to piss me off. I'm like, what the hell, people? Like, seriously. But after a while, I just started laughing about that. I didn't go to family gatherings. I just heard that that story got told. And then she bought 6 bathings, like I had just bankrupted the family or something. And the way and energy in which it was said was like, and she bought 6 bathing suits.
With incredulous tone and voice.
Right. Like incredulous, horrified. It's not like I went to jail, for stealing them. But
it had that energy, right?
It had that energy. It's so crazy. And so, yeah, I think the last time, it had been decades since I went to any family gatherings, because I just wasn't into my family, but it was still, I heard some 10 years ago that somebody said, oh yeah, they brought that story up again. I'm like, good God, do these people are so bored they don't have anything else to talk about? So that's my legacy for my family about how I am with money. So not so much me, but theirs.
Well, right, but you've had to create that distance from it, right? And that's that thing, is like our family, and this is that slippery, challenging slope, right? Because as parents, we're trying to help our kids learn how to manage and deal with money appropriately.
Yeah.
And I've heard so many parents, I hear it now, it just makes me cringe. And it sounds like, my teenagers, they're so stupid, they're so irresponsible. And it's like, are you judging them from, what point are you judging them from?
Yeah.
Because they're making decisions based on their developmental capacity and what they've seen in their life.
Right.
And you've learned a lot of lessons since that point, but we forget that as parents. And the double whammy of that is that judgment and negative evaluation erodes in most cases, their self-confidence, or it increases the fuck you response. Excuse my language.
Exactly. That was me. That was me, my parents, right?
Neither of those are the most adaptive responses.
Exactly. And this is the same with sex. And so take that conversation, this whole topic we've talked
Right.
about, and you're talking about sex on top of that, those two so close and so linked, because the
Yeah.
conversations your parents have about you, the judgment that they put on you as a teenager, forgetting how they were as a teenager, the,
Right.
you know, the shame or guilt, shaming you about sex, shaming you about money. And
Right.
so when you couple those two things, or even just one of those things, and now you're an adult in a relationship, you can totally look and see, oh my gosh, my value as how I feel, how I perform sexually, how I perform financially, right? How tied those are together. Because if you're feeling worthless financially, you are not going to be feeling so super sexy.
Oh, and that, I mean, God, that has been so true in my relationship, right? Like in my own life, and seeing that is that the layer of awareness, as you're saying it this time around, is just like shooting way up. Is as I've been on this healing journey, right? Like I went from that low self-awareness, like firefighter, financial planner, and probably moderate to decent sex life, right? Because I had my sense of self was intact, like it
Right.
wasn't fully healthy. But as I like started unpeeling those layers of the Ed onion and came into those places of insecurity, that was like you just watch the sex dry up.
Yeah.
And like my wife has told me, man, like when you are insecure or showing up, I'm the least attracted to you.
Yes. Right. So we feel that as women, we feel that lack of keenness and that
Yeah.
confidence and that energy in those body wisdoms and chakras. Because if you're shut down financially, trust me, your sex life is going to shut down, or
Right.
you'll swing the other way and you'll be like on porn, masturbating constantly for hours and hours at a time, trying to disconnect from that feeling. So that's another.
That's a whole nother response system.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Absolutely.
typically not with your partner so much.
Right.
And not being able to get financially naked, not being able to have that vulnerable conversation means that there's all sorts of unresolved fear, unresolved anxiety, self-worth. But mainly it's that fear. It's the fear. It's the same reason people don't
Around the
have
shame.
real sexual conversations, is because they're afraid they're not going to be accepted.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
not, they've done something
Absolutely.
like stupid, weird, or whatever.
I mean, you think about high school, right? And the
Do I
proving
have
ground
to?
high school is and money, huh?
Do I have to? I went to an all-girl boarding school.
Oh God. Oh yeah. I'm sorry to trigger that whole can of worms. But, I mean, right. But that's the reality, right? Is
Yeah.
like developmentally, we're working through our sense of belonging and who are the cool kids and who's not. The in and outs are so strong, and that sense of financial alienation and the one. And I imagine you'll appreciate this, but what's been so rewarding and surprising and evoking of compassion is the emotional pain that rich kids feel.
Mm,
Right? Because I always thought it was like the poor kids felt the pain about their financial situation. But the reality is what I've come to appreciate is I don't care where you're on that economic spectrum,
yeah.
you get judged for that. And by the way, as a kid, infant, kid, and teenager, you have no direct control over your financial reality. You don't choose that.
Right.
You're born into it, baby.
Yeah.
So it's part of you. And when people judge that part of you, it invokes shame.
Yeah.
And
Or a false sense of pride.
or a false sense of pride. Oh God,
There's
yes.
that side too. All right.
I'm so important.
That's right. He's turned up his collar now. He's
Pop the
doing
collar. I'm so important because
like
I go to this school
right,
and
and
you
I
go to
drive
that
this
school.
car and I do this, and I don't have to be a nice person because fuck you, I have money. Yes, indeed. That is, I've seen some of that too. All right.
Yeah.
So what's the tangible how to, the first step to get financially naked with self and or a partner? What do you say?
I liked where we ended up with that kind of gender exercise.
Okay.
I think that's like,
Let's remind everybody of that again.
yeah. So I think, what we want you to do is this is a free association exercise. Men are with money, and just give yourself a couple minutes to just see all the things that come up. Hold no judgment. We're just seeing what's inside of you.
Yeah.
hold it with compassion. And then women are with money.
Yeah.
And then, I think kind of in that light of getting naked, we can maybe add just a little more. We can say mom was with money,
Mm-hmm.
dad was with money. And if you have any step parents, you just list each step parent, because step parents are a huge part of the money. Oh God, that's a whole other can of worms. So.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah.
So
for sure.
But
Okay.
yes, as far as like taking that journey to getting financially naked, I think we're going to take that motto of know thyself.
Yeah.
And
Starts
so
with
as
self.
you get to know yourself, then you can feel more comfortable being there and accepting of whatever shows up for you or your intimate partner, because that's really what it takes.
And then if you're in a partnership, you can share that so you can see what basically how you both are feeling about that. And once again, it's not don't share that and then all of a sudden decide that you have to have some kind of deep conversation about a word that you saw that now you've decided infers something else. That's not safe. So the safe thing is you set up a container that basically is, we're going to share these documents. That's the first step. There's some financial transparency right there. Right. We're going to share these documents, but we're not going to have a conversation about them specifically a word, or we're not going to take offense. We're not going to make assumptions, because when somebody's sharing vulnerability, you have to remember that it is it's not coming from the place of the logical mind. It's coming from the place of the emotional body. So when I do a couples thing that's called I'm Afraid That, and when we do that exercise, some people will say like clowns, getting old. I mean, it's a safe place to just kind of say whatever. And I don't let people then go back and attack something that was said, because it's an irrational fear. It's a fear that for an emotional based thing. So just play safe, play nice like that with each other, because it's your first step into that financial nakedness. Okay, we'll be back. Thanks so much, everybody. See ya on the next one.